folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris once again. Hello, folks, and welcome back to Chris Wyatt Reports. This is Chris live in central Pennsylvania once again. Can I get a mic check from somebody out there? You know, I've switched up with these mics back and forth. It's playing havoc. I think you guys can hear me, but if you're in the chat, I know that Schalk can hear me, but if you guys are in the chat and you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up that you're getting the microphone. Okay. Anyway, welcome back to the program, folks. Another in our continuing interviews of Springboks and former Springboks, although, to be honest, we've never interviewed a current Springbok. I haven't broke that ice yet. Trying to figure that one out. Yeah, I was trying to get Mornay Sten before he announced his retirement, but haven't got him yet, so we'll keep working on that. Anyway, folks, Schalk Brits is with us today. It's a real pleasure. Schalk, how gaan
it? Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. It's absolutely fantastic here in Stellenbosch, but that beard of yours looks beautiful.
Well, I think the jersey looks beautiful, but that's just me. I'm a little biased. You play for a number of teams, and of course the Stormers are one of them. We'll talk a bit about that. No, Stellenbosch, beautiful. So the winter doesn't bother you? You're not affected by the winter?
Yes, but it's compared to the UK winters, I'll take the South African winters 10 times over the UK. Even some of the summer days as well.
Yeah, if it's not raining in England, it's not England, right?
Correct. Mud Island is a special place, I would say that.
Yeah, that's for sure. But no, that's a good point. With all the time you spent up there playing for Saracens and you spent in Europe and in the British Isles, it's definitely gives you an appreciation for a little bit different winter than, all the times I've been to South Africa, you always get a lot of South Africans complaining about the winter, how cold it is. And I'm typically walking around in shorts with a short sleeve shirt when they're complaining about the weather. Oh my goodness. So Stellenbosch, that's where you're at. You went to Paul Ruiz and then you went to Stellenbosch at Maddie's there. You played rugby and then got a start with Western Province, and from there your career went on. But that's not where you were born. You're born in a different part of the country, yes?
I was born at Empangeni, KwaZulu-Natal, north of Durban. For people that do not know South Africa that well, but then slowly but surely grew up in a place called Mosselbaai that is in almost southwestern part of South Africa, and then sort of finished primary school and then decided, okay, fine, I want to go to this institution or this school in Stellenbosch, and what a great decision that was.
Oh, absolutely. And that's definitely, when you think of rugby and you think of South Africa, you definitely think of there and a few places up in Pretoria that come immediately to mind. And Grey College, of course, is another one in Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
it's a phenomenal school.
Sorry, good. A phenomenal school. Yeah, well, I haven't talked to any of my guests about Stellenbosch. I've actually been published by them. Very kind of them. They've invited me on a couple book projects, academic things, that sort of thing. Not rugby, but academic. So what was your best experience there? Did you enjoy the academic environment? Did you enjoy the rugby itself, or just Stellenbosch? I mean, because it's a beautiful location. Stellenbosch is gorgeous.
Yeah, look, location-wise, you almost can't get better in South Africa. I'm extremely biased towards Stellenbosch and the Western Cape. It's a place where things work. It's beautiful, and it gives people opportunities. The reason for going across was actually totally different for rugby. It was actually, I was a amateur wrestler when I was younger, and 2 guys ahead of me went to Paris, and I thought, okay, fine, if they've gone, and they were good friends and they were successful within Paris, that's just a great opportunity to go, and got accepted to Paris. And from the start go, it's sort of it's quite a diverse, it's known as a rugby school, but it's got so much more. It's from skateboarding, mountain biking, surfing, cricket, golf, tennis, everything. So I think what they do well is they look at the kid itself, look from a holistic perspective where we can grow the kid and make him from a young boy to a good young man, and give him diversity and opportunities.
Well, you say wrestling, but I assume we're talking about Greco-Roman wrestling, not Killer Kowalski, in the boxing ring.
So when I try to explain to my boys that I did amateur wrestling, they watch this WWE, and
exactly.
I'm like, no, that is not it. They try to pin you on the ground, and it's brutal. And of course, people get hurt in WWE as well, but this is for real. There's no prescribed scripts beforehand. This is man on man. So and you wear wear different like outfits, red and blue one, and it looks horrible, but that's the way you wrestle.
Well, I should imagine that Greco-Roman wrestling is a good prep ground for rolling maul or the scrum work that you got to do in rugby.
100%, and I think that was probably one of the things I would, even with my three boys, I've got 11-year-old, a 9, and a 7. It's something, unfortunately, there's not any wrestling in Stellenbosch currently, but one of the reasons I think I didn't get as many injuries and got pretty much did all right in rugby was because of wrestling. And funny enough, all the other 2 players that went before me, wrestlers as well, they all played for SA schools. They didn't go on to play for the Springboks, but there's a lot of rugby players that I know that has wrestled in their younger years.
It's an interesting point you make, and let me ask you your thoughts on this, because it's kind of something it's really kept me from getting a number of injuries, and I play sports as well, and also in combat and that sort of thing. You got to know how to take a fall. You got to know how to roll out of things. Now, of course, in rugby, someone could come in and hit you in the side and mess your ACL or MCL up, or hit your knee or something like that, or you roll your ankle. That can happen. You have no control over that. But when you're going into a tackle or you're making a tackle, you got to know how to take that fall. And I would imagine that from Greco-Roman wrestling, those moves, and your body's more flexible, and when I better just take the fall, just roll with it rather than twist or snap something.
No, 100%. I think that is using. Look, I'm small for a rugby player, or definitely from a South African perspective. And one thing rugby does teach you is using momentum. And instead of fighting things and fighting momentum, you play with it. And I think a good example is Dwayne from Nicklin. He wrestled as well. And funny enough, sometimes when you have a couple of beers in and things escalate, then you wrestle a little bit and have a bit of fun. And so from a rugby perspective, I think a lot of rugby players can definitely benefit the younger generations and now the future generations. And myself and Dwayne, and I think Kwacha wrestled. There's a couple of Springbok players that wrestled in their younger years.
Well, if you're talking about Quagga Smith, I could see how he's a wrestler. I mean, look, Quagga Smith, Cheslin Colby. I mean, I don't know what spinach these guys eat, but both of them are not big guys, especially Cheslin. Cheslin hits like a back truck, man. I wouldn't want to take a hit from that guy. Whew.
Not just even hitting, it's the way he goes into contact. I mean, power to weight ratio. I mean, back in the day, you always had to be big to play for South Africa. I think that sort of mentality has changed. It's a power to weight ratio game. How many hits can you make? How many involvements can you have? And sort of that has changed, and I think improved the South African setup. You've got exciting guys and you've got big guys, and you need a combination of different talents and different skill sets to make a team work.
No, absolutely. It's the thing about it is you get these guys and really they're applying physics. You got to know physics. You got to know the right angle at the right pace. But yeah, I'll tell you what, whatever it's angle or it's smart or whatever, I don't want to be hit by those guys a big time. So listen, you're post rugby now. How are you finding life? Obviously raising your kids. You seem like a very happy dad. I mean, people check out your Instagram channel or your Instagram profile and lots of other things. You look like you're having a very good life. How's life post rugby?
Fantastic, actually, Chris. Well, taking one step back, it was after school. I got a contract a contract from Western Province Rugby Union, the shirt you're wearing. And that was actually the first shirt in 99 for sort of to go into professional. And myself and a guy called John de Villiers got offered money, 50,000 Rand. That's £2,500. That's nothing. But at least you could pay for your studies. So from that perspective, I thought, okay, fine. They're paying me money to play a game that I love. I can actually pay my studies, tell mom and dad to get off my back. They don't have to tell me to study anymore. And so I finished the studies, and then I thought instead of doing articles, I studied management accountancy. I'll play 1 year of rugby. And so 1 year changed, before doing articles, changed into playing another 15 or 16 years. So going back to where I finished in 2019, it was quite different. Finished in 2019, did some work experience at KPMG in London, worked for a company called Instar that does insurance and reinsurance. But that was always in the back of my mind that you have to finish a career and start a new one. So luckily, I had the opportunity to work for Remgro investment, one of the biggest investment holding companies, or the biggest investment holding companies in South Africa, worked there for 2 years. They gave me exposure. Sorry, I'm just making as quickly as possible to private equity, venture capital, internal audit, and so finished that rotation. Then worked for an investment fund called Southern Right Capital. Resigned in October just because it was tough with kids being away 3 days of the week, traveling quite a bit. My wife still works in London, so she has to be in London every second month. So I've been actually on a fantastic sabbatical for what's now 7-8 months. I'll finish my restriction of trade, and I'll probably only start in 2024 again in the corporate world.
Well, that's kind of nice. I mean, and that's not a Rona-induced sabbatical like most of the world had there for about a year and a half. That's nice. I mean, everyone else is hopefully going back to work, and you're taking a little bit of time to catch your breath.
Yeah, I guess it was, for me, going from the rugby environment to the corporate world to COVID and lockdown, and it was actually quite difficult because I wasn't clever enough. I had to go at university. I had to go to class. That's the way I learned, through physical contact or seeing lecturers talk. And it was hard doing it over Zoom or Teams or anything like that. So it was a hard time to do the transition. But that's life. But it's been good. The investment world or the wealth management side is very interesting, but you have to find a balance in life. And currently, with my wife working, me traveling a lot and doing still some rugby orientated stuff, it became a bit tricky. Well,
I think you're helping us dispel that myth that rugby oaks are just big guys and aren't that bright. It sounds like you got your act together there. You planned well ahead of time for what you do after rugby.
Yeah, I think if you say the myth, that's definitely the backs. The forwards are the clever ones. They may be more the rounded ones, but they are the clever ones. The backs is
I better check my guest list and see who's coming up.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's just funny enough, going back to rugby wise, I think the backs mature or play early on in their career, and the forwards sort of got a bit of a lag on that, so that gives them opportunity to finish a degree. For example, Jean de Villiers, he got pulled into senior rugby quite early on in his career and couldn't finish his studies. So I guess that's just the way it is.
By the way, you played at Tokyo City, I believe, in Japan in the 2019 World Cup and scored a try right in front of me. But to be fair, I was in the top row of the stadium, so it wasn't really right in front of me.
Yeah, well, I don't know what your experience is, but just going back to Japan, it was probably one of the most, not life-altering, but the way the Japanese people respects each other, the way they approach the game, the Japanese way, and all the different. It felt literally that when we landed in the beginning of the World Cup, we were there 2 weeks early to play against Japan. It just felt if I landed on Mars. And so for me, it was just one of the most surreal experiences going to Japan, experiencing the Japanese way, having a World Cup. I mean, to be fair, rugby isn't even one of the top 5 sports in the world, but going to Japan with and seeing the Japanese people embrace this game called rugby was just phenomenal.
No, absolutely. It's look, I was at the World Cup in 2011 in New Zealand, which was really well done. But 2011 New Zealand, 2014 Paris women, 2015 England 16 matches, 2017 Ireland for the Women's World Cup, 2018 San Francisco for the Sevens World Cup, 2019 I spent a month in Japan. And then last year I went to England for the 2021 but delayed to 2022 Rugby League World Cup and gave that a shot.
Yeah.
I had tickets for the Women's World Cup, but New Zealand is a little difficult to travel to these days, so I didn't go. But no, I got look, Schalk, I got to agree with you 100%. The Japanese experience was unbelievable. Now, I planned for it for 4 years. I set a little bit of money here aside. I reserved, things way in advance. I bought the train ticket, one for 21 days because that's max, another for 7 days. I had 18 tickets of the 40 pool stage games. The only game I didn't get to go to was the Italians versus the All Blacks in Toyota City because the Hagibis canceled that typhoon. But the Japanese were just amazing everywhere you went, and they were incredible. I had a Japanese Brave Blossoms jersey because I collect rugby jerseys. I got a few hundred of them. And oh my God, I was like a rock star. They just everybody, like rugby players walking in the side of a stadium. They see me, this white looking guy from North America. They run over and take pictures. You know what they were like. The Japanese were incredible, and they really put on a great game. The atmosphere, everything, the execution. Even a lot of us were disappointed about Hagibis, but I think even the way that the Japan handled that typhoon, I thought they did an incredible job.
No, as players, so I can say from the player perspective, it was just phenomenal. We got there 2 weeks early, played against Japan. The friendliness, the openness, the willingness to help was just phenomenal. I mean, the golf courses I've played, the sceneries I've seen, or the places I've seen was just phenomenal. And they wanted to make it a great rugby experience, but a great traveling experience, and sort of saying, listen, this is Japan. I know you guys sit on the other side of the world, but it's a great country. Don't have exposure of it enough. Please come back. And that sort of, I can't wait for my boys to be a little bit older and then take them back and go to different places within Japan, do a bit of the East. Just a phenomenal experience.
Absolutely. Now, I, in the end, hit 9 of the 13 venues. I was at all the Springboks games because I had the Springboks tickets. I hit 3 of the 4 Eagles games, including the game against France when the French fans were, typical French fans, obnoxious. And about the 60th minute, they realized we might lose this game. Now, they actually won, without any difficulty because the Eagles ran out of steam in the last 20 minutes. But at the 60-minute point, up until then, the French fans, because I was sitting, I knew one of he's from South Africa, but he grew up here in the States. He's on the USA Eagles side. And I knew his parents. And so I got to sit with the family there in one spot, even though I already had a ticket. And so the French fans were sitting right next to us. They were very obnoxious, and they kept getting worse. And then about 50 minutes, they got quiet until about 62, 63 minutes when they scored a try, and then suddenly they started being obnoxious again. But other than the French fans, it was an incredible experience. It's amazing. And I really thought that they just handled it so well. Are you going to get a chance to go to France for the upcoming World Cup or no?
I'm definitely funny enough, we're going to London with a family trip. And my boys just wanted to badly go to watch a World Cup game because they missed actually Japan just with schooling and travel and hours. And they were quite young. So I'm taking them for South Africa versus Tonga and then doing a bit of Europe, showing them around as they were all born in London. So I can't wait to go watch a bit of rugby experience in the World Cup, can I say, culture, not culture, but World Cup vibes. And I can't wait to go back.
Well, this has actually been for me the most frustrating World Cup to get tickets because of the way they handle it, and unfortunately for me, it's just been a real mess. Unfortunately for me, I was in South Africa when they opened up the window of the general, and I had the early stuff. I got the city package, I got the team package, which was first, so I got all the Springboks games, and then I got a couple cities. Anyway, but I only have like 8 tickets. Usually, I go to 15 to 20, pool stage games. But this one's been really frustrating because I was in South Africa when they opened up the general sales, and they were all gone within like 36 hours, the tickets. And I couldn't get in because my IP address was in South Africa, but my account had been set up in the States, and it wouldn't let me in. So
no.
Exactly. I've been trying to get the resale. What's that?
Yeah. No, even as an ex-Springbok rugby player, trying to get tickets has been an absolute nightmare. Not only is it hard to find, it is extremely expensive, and the rand-pound exchange rate isn't great, or euro exchange rate isn't great. But it's getting the tickets like Ireland, South Africa, Scotland is a nightmare. South Africa, England is a nightmare. Ireland's a nightmare. And then trying to get tickets after the quarterfinals, we don't know what's going to happen, right? So you sort of wait and see, and then hopefully the boys will proceed, like I hope they will, to the final and hopefully win the World Cup. But then, there would hopefully be tickets coming available when the team goes further on in the competition.
Well, I'm hoping that this might be a repeat of what we saw at the Olympics in London in 2012. I was stationed in Germany at the time in the Army, And I was able to get tickets. I didn't even imagine going to the Olympics because originally I was supposed to be stationed in Niger, and then I got diverted to Germany. So I mean, no bad luck there. That's actually good. You know? So, I'm sorry, Chad, not Niger. I actually was stationed in Niger later on, but I was supposed to go to Chad, even worse than Niger. But anyway, so I was in Germany. I wasn't expecting to go to the Olympics, and then they had given so many tickets to the National Olympic Committees that like Michael Phelps is setting world records in the pool, and there's like 80 people in the arena. And that was bad optics for television. So they forced a lot of these countries like Mongolia and who never gave out their tickets to give their tickets back. They put them in the pool, but only for people in Europe. Lucky for me, I was in Europe. I was living in Germany, so I was able to buy tickets. I went to 13 or 14 of the Olympic game events, and it was incredible. It was amazing. I'm hoping that something similar might be the case here, that people have been allocated tickets and they're not using them, and maybe they put them back in the pool. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, what I do know is it's the least amount of tickets being given to the general public abroad. Like, I mean, a lot. I guess with the French Federation, they gave a lot of tickets away to the locals. But hopefully, when we're there, you can get some extra tickets somewhere or somehow.
Absolutely. I'm sorting out one of the things I've got a hire, and because the trains are just too complicated to get, this day you can travel that day, this train, that train. So Japan trains were perfect. But when I'm doing the World Cup in France, I've got a hire. But it's the first time in like 30 years that Avis just said I don't get unlimited mileage. And it's like a long way from place to place in France. So now I've got to figure out where I can leave my hire and take a train to go to that leg and then come back and pick up my hire so I don't have to pay $50 per kilometer after I run out of 3,000 kilometers.
Well, you can buy like a 3,000 euro car and actually just leave it afterwards.
Oh, that's an idea.
You can buy it on an auction or something like that. I bought... Actually, in the UK, I bought the first week we got there. I bought it at auction, a Peugeot 307.
Oh my goodness!
£2,500, and that kept me going for about 3 years, and then I sold it. So I mean, that's another option.
That's a good point. That is an option. So, all right. So, well, maybe I'll see you at the Tonga game. We'll see how that goes. That'd be pretty cool. Link up, have a coffee or something like that. But that'd be great to get your sons there. I mean, I'm sure they'll love it. Are they interested in rugby? Are the oldest one headed that direction already, or not their cup of tea?
Chris, from my perspective, I just want them to play sports. Like, I mean, you're passionate about sport. I want them to, they're getting exposure from golf to tennis to rugby to hockey to athletics to, I mean, I'm trying to get them into surfing now. But one thing is, weather-wise, I guess you've got the opportunity to do a lot of these sports. So, yes, the answer is they love rugby, but I hope they don't love rugby because Daddy was a rugby player. I want them to, and that's my biggest message to them is do what makes you happy and what you like. Unfortunately, you have to be successful in anything, you have to work hard and be disciplined. But firstly, the love comes first, and then secondly, the other things comes.
No, that's a great healthy attitude. Yes. That's brilliant. I mean, that's how parents should be. Let their kids excel at whatever they want to do. If they go into rugby, that's great. If they don't, I didn't think you were pushing that way. I was just curious if they're interested in sports. So that's good to hear. It's because I think a lot of people who don't get active in sports don't realize the role it plays, in socialization. It teaches competitiveness. It teaches excellence. It, more importantly, teaches teamwork, and leadership comes out of sports. Somebody's got to be a leader, even though it's a team. All of those skills come together and really are helpful in life.
Amen. That's exactly literally what I told my boys. One unfortunate thing, Chris, is though they're not forwards. They all got great talent. They're good looking and they look like mum. So they're in the backs. And I said, guys, we need to have at least one out of the three needs to play in the forwards. You can't have all three playing in the back line.
Well, listen, I didn't get a chance to grow up with rugby. I mean, I knew what it was, but I was introduced to the game at university when I was a freshman in the early 1980s. And one of the upperclassmen said, "You come into the game tonight." It was a Friday. I said, the game's tomorrow, assuming he was talking about American football because, the university's playing Saturday. And he said, no, not football. I'm talking about rugby. I'm like, man, I'm from Appalachia. We're just happy with paved roads and electricity. I mean, I've heard of rugby, but he's like, you'll love it. You'll meet women. I'm like, okay, where's the game at? So I went there and it was fantastic. And I fell in love with the game right then. It's an incredible sport. I've never introduced a single person to the game of rugby that didn't absolutely love it. Not like it, but absolutely love it. My nephew, I mean, he couldn't get enough of it. I took him to a game when he had his first tentative effort to have pro rugby in the States a few years ago when I came back from Ethiopia, and he just kept going on and on about it. He loves the game. It's an incredible game. It's really special. You know, a lot of people are surprised to see an American who's such a big enthusiast for the game. But what they don't realize is that rugby's been here for a long time, and we have the second largest number of rugby players registered in the world is in the U.S. It's just that we didn't go professional in the mid-'90s when the rest of the world did it, and we suffered as a consequence. But
here's a question. Yeah. Here's a question. How do you reckon with because you're hosting a World Cup, how do you think that will be embraced by the Americans?
I think what'll happen is that we'll see a lot. Well, we got the women's first, right? That's going to be a test run, but I mean that's not really going to be an indicator. You know, those aren't heavily attended, but it will help operationally. Excuse me, get the kinks out for USA Rugby, our rugby union, to sort out so they don't make mistakes for the big show in 30-31. I think that's when we have 30-31, 29-31. Yeah. I think America will embrace the game, but it's going to come with a lot of marketing. If they do the marketing, that's a success. You know, the thing for me was always frustrating because Super Rugby always wanted to expand. You know, they went here, they went there, they went to Argentina, they went to Japan, and the Japanese team played in Japan, and they also played in Malaysia. Anyway, you know, so they were going all over. I said, if you want to expand Super Rugby from Super 12 to Super 14, I was cool with that, but then 15 was okay, but after that was too much. You need to go to San Diego. You know, I mean, it was just too much, right? I mean, it's just too many teams, too many places. The talent pool, a lot of people argue, got diluted. But whatever the case is, I said, if you're going to do that, you might as well put a team in San Diego or Hawaii. I mean, because the bottom line is this, is that if you want the sport to grow internationally bigger than it already is in its established, I mean, look, it's not going to get bigger in the British Isles. It's huge. It's not going to get bigger in France. It's huge. It's not going to, well, it could get bigger in South Africa. Nobody's showing up at Curry Cup. We could talk about that. But anyway, you know, but it's basically the places where it's a big sport, it's already a big sport. If you want it to grow in the other places, you're going to have to grow it in the biggest media market in the world, which has the dollars, the resource, and that was my argument with the U.S. Major League Rugby hasn't caught on with the public here in the States, but I would argue a lot of that has to do with its marketing. I think they have poor marketing because the product isn't bad. I cover games in Chicago, Houston, Dallas. That's a lot of flying. Atlanta, New York, and DC. All at my own expense, by the way, just to promote the game. So Major League Rugby, if you're listening.
Yeah, and you've got a population, and there's, I guess you can, if you entice only 5%, that's more than any amount of rugby players that is in South Africa or in Britain. So from that perspective, I think it's and you've got big people, you've got talented, but they just don't have exposure to it enough.
Well, I think one of the smart things that USA Rugby did a few years back is they put a lot of energy into our sevens. And it showed there for a while. Before COVID, I mean, we nearly won the sevens season. It came in second because Samoa, they pinched, or Fiji pinched us at the end there in that last tournament. But the USA was the only team that's ever gone all 10 tournaments to the semifinals. That was incredible, and they finished second that year. Perry Baker was amazing back-to-back years. He didn't even start playing rugby.
He's quick.
Oh yeah, and not just quick, but got great moves
my
too.
Goodness.
Oh yeah. Well, I got into sevens because of Carlin Isles. I thought Carlin Isles, and of course. Sebat Sanatla. That's the other reason I love sevens. My goodness, the blitz box. Oh my goodness. But anyway, so they put a lot of effort into it. That the problem with USA Rugby, and not to speak ill of it, you don't have to comment on this, is that there's a lot of internal bickering and strife. It kind of reminds me of the Western Province Rugby Union. Anyway, but mismanagement and. I didn't say that out loud. You don't have to comment on that, Schalk. But anyway, but let's go away from Western Province for a second. Look, you got like triple digits on tests with Saracens or something like that, right? Did you get 100 games with them?
222, actually, to be precise.
Oh, well, my math isn't very good. No, I knew that. Testing people. How? Excuse me. I'm so excited about those 222 games, but how? Oh, God bless. How was that for you? That's got to be an unbelievably long streak of durability, 200-plus tests. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, the thing is, the plan was only to go there for a year or two, see a bit of Europe.
A year or two?
Rugby, literally a year or two. When I finished at the Stormers, played a couple of test matches for South Africa, and then I thought, okay, fine. I've done South Africa all over. I've done New Zealand, Australia, and now trying to experience something different. Let's go to Europe, see a bit of France, Italy, Wales, Ireland, Scotland. And so the plan was to go to France and experience that, learn a new language, and then I got an offer from Saracens, and I thought, okay, my wife can work in London, and I can experience a bit of London and England, and then after a year or two, then move to a different place, and then retire and start my professional career in finance. And then the year or two ended up being 10 years, and only finished in 18, I retired at Saracens. But just from a lifestyle perspective, it was probably the best life decision we've made. And from what I've learned, how successful the team was, culturally, it was a phenomenal place to play at. It was just a good decision and a good experience.
Well, it's interesting because you asked that question, and Saracens comes into play in this here, is you asked that question a few moments ago about how the U.S. will embrace rugby. There's been 3 big rugby events, well, 4 really, and 2 went well, 2 did not go well, and they were disappointing. So we had this game organized with the All Blacks in Chicago that had like 70,000+ people show up at Soldier Field. That was incredible. I actually knew one of the New Zealand diplomats because he was assigned to the African Union, which is where I was at the time. And I met him at one, his diplomatic functions. We're chatting because he's like, "Oh, you like rugby?" I'm like, "Yeah, I like rugby." He's like, "Oh, I set up that game in Chicago." I'm like, "What?" Yeah. Anyway, so that was pretty cool. But then we had the Ireland game where the Ireland came, and I think they played the All Blacks, but that one went well too. But then we had 2 games that were huge disappointments in my perspective, not because of the play, but because of the audience. In Philadelphia, Saracens came over in 2015 to play Newcastle. And were you in that game? I'm trying to recall. I know Schalk Burger was in that game.
Yeah. So that was one of my rotation games. So that was actually the best ever. I saw a lot of Philadelphia, traveled around, saw New York, and we had one other game against, I can't remember who it was. We've played 2 games, in New York or roundabout, but it was just a great week.
No, it was amazing, but that game only had like 6,200 spectators. I was so disappointed in the turnout on that. And again, I think that was one that was poorly marketed. Then the last one, which was a disappointment, was when the Springboks, Rossi's first game as coach, the Springboks played at RFK. Number one, the venue was a bad decision. They had just finished Audi Field, which is a soccer field, but it's gorgeous, brand new stadium in DC, right across from the military base there. I mean, literally across the street. And that place, they could have sold that place out with the crowd that came. It would have been amazing. But RFK is a huge cavernous American football stadium that looks like something from the developing world that's falling apart. And 23,000 showed up for that game or something like that. I was not happy. Not happy. I mean, a huge Springbok contingent. A lot of South Africans living in the States came. A lot of fun out there pre-game, but very disappointing at the game. And also, I was disappointed. I didn't know Rossi's strategy. I was like, Springboks, you play to win every time. Well, he was testing players out. And I'm like, what are these guys doing? They're knocking the ball on. Get them off the pitch. But he was trying to find the right balance and right mix. And I can't argue with success. He won. They got the World Cup. But I was not happy that day for a lot of reasons. And it rained, too. I should mention that.
Well, Chris, you'll be pulling your hair out because it's going to be exactly the same leading up to this World Cup.
I know.
He's going to make fun. He's going to make interesting choices. He's going to try to create depth within the squad. I mean, the amount of, I think, people were upset about last week's game against
the All Blacks,
New Zealand, and the All Blacks, and the week before that against was Australia. People were unhappy with the selection because they expect him to play his best squad every weekend, and his viewpoint is people do not remember what happens in between World Cups. People just remember the World Cup.
Yeah. No, he's look. You can't argue with that. It's right, but that doesn't mean I don't want to see the Springboks win every game. And they've only won 60% of the games since COVID.
100%.
Excuse me. Yeah, so I mean the strategy works. We'll see how it goes. But I had Monty Jackson's wife Crystal on yesterday, as I mentioned earlier, and we talked a lot about this. We talked about those guys. I don't want to say fringe players because they're not fringe players, but fringe selection at this point. People are on the edge right there. We talked about that a bit yesterday. But before I continue, I just want to remind folks, hey, thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Chris Wyatt Reports here on the Indaba Africa channel. My guest today is Schalk Brits, Springbok a Stormer, a Saracen, a Bull, a Lion. Boy, I can keep running through the list here. And let's not forget this. I think you played for the Barbarians as well. You were Baba as well, right?
Yes, I was a Barbas. A very, very happy Barbas.
Now I'm sorry. That's one of the coolest things about rugby is that club, how they bring people together. They've done it for so long. I really, really enjoy those games. And unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to actually go to one. I've just watched them on TV. What's it like playing for that selection? Because you're playing with guys from all over the world you've competed against, and maybe a handful of guys that played with you before. What's that like?
The one thing I would say is with the Barbarians is you compete against each other week in and week out. And then sort of the perception you have of a player, it is, how can I say, you don't like him because he's competitive. You are trying to kick the living crap out of each other during the game. And then after the game, you don't really, with a professional era, don't have enough time spending time with them. Then you meet the guys at a Barbarian training camp and you come to the conclusion, well, not training camp, but leading up to a test match, you meet the guys, you are on a social event almost during the whole week, building culture, building and having fun. And then at the end, you walk away and thinking, this guy that you've competed against for the last 5 years is an amazing guy. And so it was pretty much for every young player that ever gets opportunity to get invited to the Barbarians, go, because it's an unforgettable week.
No, it's really, I mean, for spectators, for fans, it's fun to watch Barbarians, and I love to see the mix up of players. I mean, you got Kiwis playing with Boka, and you've got Wallabies out there, and everyone else. It's all on the same team. It's pretty cool stuff. It's kind of like, I mean, all-star games. We have all-star games here in America for sports.
Yeah,
that's what it really is. So let me ask you this question. Obviously, you're a fan of the game as well. I mean, you're going to the World Cup, so. Do you have, at risk of exposing this, you don't have to answer it. You can demur if you want. Do you have a favorite player that you like to watch, or is there someone that really gets your attention? You're really excited to see on the pitch. I mean, for me, my favorite player shifts from time to time. In the interest of full disclosure, Schalk, you were never my favorite player. I'll just let you know that now. Okay,
but that's okay. That's okay.
That ends the interview. No, but my favorite player changed. There's a time when he played for the Cheetahs, I loved Billy LaRue. He's my favorite player. I was a huge Dwayne Vermeulen fan for a long time. But is there a player that you kind of like? I can't wait to see that guy play.
The Pont is probably one of the best scrum halves currently in the world. He is exciting. I mean, Cheslin Colby has brought X factor to the Springboks. There's so many different players I like to watch, and for me, it's being a hooker. Of course, I like different hookers, and especially if a hooker's got an X factor, that it's always nicer to watch. I mean, younger. This is probably pre your time or our time, is a guy called Uli Schmidt. When I was a kid growing up, he was phenomenal. Then you had Keith Wood, and then in the modern era, a guy like Dan Cole or Malcolm Marks. Now, even he tries to get his hands on the ball as much as possible. That's quite exciting. But for me, is the diversity and patterns. Is in the beginning you just watch players. Now I'm quite interested to see Ireland. They've got a ball keeping mentality. They try to keep possession as long as possible. New Zealand has always been probably one of the best counter-attacking teams in the world. Japan keeps the ball in play. France's brutality and physicality, almost similar to South Africa. And it's for England the same. It's how they're going to break down the opposition's defense with their attacking flair. But players-wise, when I grew up, John Aloma was, I think he changed the world. They are probably, in rugby terms, probably the biggest international star. Yes, there's great in the rugby circles, but the impact he had as a young All Black coming 95 to the World Cup was just phenomenal. Brian O'Driscoll was great. Going to the World Cup now, I would like to see different. It's almost, players is extremely important, but how does every strategy compete with another strategy? Ours are quite brutal, quite conservative, kicking, scrumming, mauling. That's what I'm looking forward to see. I'm more the purist. I've changed from being just player orientated to strategy orientated.
Well, that makes sense, but I like a lot of rugby, or a lot of Buck fans get a little frustrated when we do the box kicking game all day. You know, that gets a bit old. I like to see the game open up. Go ahead,
So I mean, so a lot of my friends, like most WhatsApps, you after every test match, you get a lot of either abuse or some congratulations, and if you win, it wasn't pretty enough. So after the first couple of test matches, especially the first one after New Zealand, we lost. It is like, please just stop kicking the ball. Please, I did not pay the money to fly all the way to Japan to see Philly, Andre, and Faf kick the living crap out of the ball.
I see you got my WhatsApp at the World Cup.
and so it's trying to, and it's weird because if you're not in the group, you don't understand the KPIs we look at. Like every player, every coach, look at different KPIs, and we looked at kicking meters versus running meters, and a bigger indicator for success was actually kicking meters than running meters. So we said, well, if that is the stats, and Russ is very factually stats-based coach, we said, okay, we kick it. So anyway, so trying to convince South Africans that that's the right approach is very hard, because everyone wants to see beautiful rugby, and especially in World Cups, the viewpoint is always, to put defense will always win you cups. But anyway, that's just how Rusty looks at it and how I looked at it.
Well, in the end, you can't argue. I mean, you guys won. I mean, you got it, and it was convincing too. But I will say this: it would have been interesting if the All Blacks had gotten past England. But I breathed a sigh of relief that the All Blacks weren't in the final. To be honest, I knew we could beat England, but the All Blacks, I thought we could beat them. I was disappointed. I was obviously at that game in Yokohama, that first game. That was and then,
beautiful game.
Oh, it was incredible. But the outcome was a bit disappointing because I thought that we played better than I thought we should have won that day. But and then I had Ireland and Scotland was like the next game. I had two great games in Yokohama. It was incredible.
No, I mean, probably if you look at England beating Australia, Southern Hemisphere side, great performance. Then they go over or play against New Zealand, playing against probably one of the best New Zealand sides and getting thumped. And then, playing South Africa, to go 3 weeks in a row playing 3 Southern Hemisphere sides is just extremely hard on any team. They were unlucky with a couple of injuries, especially with Sinclair getting injured. But I'm not complaining. We've got the cup here, and we're defending it.
That's right. Listen, I mean, I guess the good news, because Eddie Jones was a coach of that England side, that's a good thing you didn't field your B side. Sorry.
Well, we never referred to he never referred to a B side, but what he did say is undercooked South African side. And so when he got taken on that specific point, he was quite feisty, I would say, during the media interview. But hey, it's one thing, Australia's never won at Loftus. Secondly, we did it in 2018 as well. It gives the other guys, and especially people, write off the B side because it's a half-cooked side. Then the boys, it gives the players that's getting an opportunity to put their stake down to be selected for the World Cup. That gives them extra motivation, and the boys performed pretty well.
Yeah, no, there were some actually brilliant performances in that game. I thought in the Wallabies game, Marco van Staden, he made a statement in that game. Unbelievable. Andres Esterhuizen made a statement in that game. And Dwayne Vermeulen, like I say, I was a fan. I've been a fan for a long time. I love Dwayne. But I started making comments he might be past it, recently, because I just didn't. But watching that game, I'm like, well, I'll eat my words on that. Humble pie. Dwayne was incredible. I was, of course, we look at Kurtley Arnsey, but I mean, Kurtley Arnsey, if we give him the ball enough, he'd probably score 6 tries per game the way he's playing right now. But it was pretty. But there wasn't a perfect game though. There were some. The first and last try that scored by Australia, neither one should have been scored. Defensive breakdowns that shouldn't have happened. So but I'm a critical analyst. So
yeah. So I'm not so critical. But what I would say is, definitely in the beginning, to put a team together that hasn't played together before. The boys looked anxious and over keen. Yes, there was fantastic performances pretty much by almost all the players. I mean, with Marnie at 10 or at fly off, giving Andre Estrazen freedom to run at people. He is a big human being. Just gave probably one of his best test matches I've ever seen him in a Springbok shirt. And he opened up the back combinations with Willie coming in, giving space to the wingers. It was just a phenomenal performance. And then I would say the pack sort of in the beginning struggled to get dominance. They started getting dominance in the second half. And when Australia got scoreboard pressure, they tried to play from deep. The one thing I was quite surprised with the Australians is it never felt that they really pulled the trigger. They scored the first try, and I just felt that defense, they kept on playing deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's going to be interesting. Hey, it's Eddie's first test match. It can only go up from here.
They lost in the Pumas next week.
They lost against Argentina. But saying that is, I mean, they are a group of individuals that play all over the world. They've got great IP that they bring back.
Oh yeah, there's no shame in losing the Pumas. They're a quality side, and they've gone to the quarterfinals several times in the World Cup. Yeah. But that is two losses in a row coming out of the gate. That's not going to fly well down under.
Well, and they're playing New Zealand, so it can be through.
Yeah.
And on the bounce is with any coach. I mean, pressure gets to every coach, no matter who you are. I've seen it in 2015 with Heineke. It just happens when you're under the pump, and you get it becomes. So the only team ever that I know that come out on top was pretty much the French, because they're all crazy. They fire the coach, they have a revolt, and they make the final of a World Cup in 2011. That's the only team that I know that can do that.
That's not a World Cup we want to remember the final. That was like...
Yeah.
Oh, my 100%. Goodness. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that was a huge disappointment. Hey, so listen, when I interviewed Heineke Meyer on the program last year, my viewers said I should do this. So I pulled out my Brighton ticket for the 2015 World Cup, in which the Boks lost, and I said I'd like my money back.
Please tell me his response.
Oh, he laughed. He thought it was hilarious. But but he didn't give me my money back. Damn it.
Well, one good thing is we made a lot of money out of that, Chris. Yeah. We wagered. Nobody thought we were going to win. Hey, that paid for my ticket prices and my house and everything. No, it's fun. It's funny. During that week, the build up, Farida Priya and Schalk Brits was playing in Japan, and he said, "Boys, look, I've worked with Eddie. I know Steve Borthwick. He was my captain at Saracens. Extremely technical and very good coach. And I'm glad he took over England. But saying that combination is dangerous. And Eddie would come up with funny moves. I mean, he nullified our maul. He nullified our scrum. He took the ball in and out in 2 seconds. And that was quite a big shock. I mean, you must have seen the change room afterwards. I've never been in a change room that quiet. But fair play. Japan played well. We didn't deserve to win. And unfortunately, we pulled it back. Lost against New Zealand. Made some silly errors in that game. Got unlucky, but hey, we got the bronze, but nobody remembers third.
Nobody remembers third in the World Cup, that's for sure. But yes, that's true. Now, to me, the Brighton thing was earth-shattering, but I wasn't shocked. I mean, Eddie Jones is a fine coach, and he'd done really well there, and they played well. They play, as you said. But the loss of the All Blacks was crushing. I was really so bummed out in that game. I thought we had kind of like the way that Scotland got. Unfortunately,
Australia.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, that official, who's a fantastic official, I saw at the Sevens World Cup in San Francisco, and we did a selfie there. So I won't mention him by name; the audience can figure that out. He's one of the best officials. But then he went exclusively to Sevens officiating after that for a little bit before he retired. Yeah, but that was interesting. So but you didn't play in that game in Japan. Did you make the trip down to Brighton, or did the team stay in different places, or did you travel together all the time?
So I was in the squad. So we stayed in Brighton. I was in the stadium with the team or the non-playing players watching the game. And funny enough, the idea was I never thought we would ever lose that game. probably a bit of arrogance, probably a bit of confidence in the players playing. And I mean, when they got a penalty with 3 or 4 minutes to go, and instead of drawing the game, they kicked to the corner, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that shows confidence in the group and what they're going to do, and they they put a stake down, and I guess same with 2019. The Japanese way and the way that the amount of periods they can keep the ball is phenomenal. And it's still, I didn't want to be the team that lost to Japan in the first World Cup ever, or South Africa, the South African Springboks losing to the first Japanese side.
I guess, the pain is there's a little bit of salve on that because everybody lost in the pool stage to Japan in 2019.
But I didn't. Everybody remembers their first time, and we were the first time. So
yeah,
it's
true. That's true. But
anyway.
I mean, Ireland was shocked, and Scotland was a little surprised. But Ireland was shocked when Japan beat them in Japan. I wasn't. It's a quality side. Speaking of which, Leach just got a red card this weekend for a tackle he made. I'm sure they've got a few games left. So he should be back for the World Cup. But ouch for Japan. They've, I think, some programs have really been harmed by the lockdown, shutdown, and in particular, I'd say like the Eagles are really devastated by that. The impact of that has been terrible for us because most of our players aren't playing in Premiership Rugby or Pro 14, the URC, all that stuff. They're not over there, just a handful over there. And a lot of them were just getting into Major League Rugby when that happened. So that hurt us. I think Japan is another country. You can see they've been uneven performances, whereas they were on a glide path doing very well in the top 10 before that. And I think even to be honest, I think the Springboks have been hurt a little bit by it too. But I would argue that the URC inclusion of the 4 teams has made a big impact on keeping South Africa better prepared than they would have been because of the consequence of the lockdown.
I agree 100% with you. And not even past lockdown, just for us going north. I mean, the Super Rugby, with all due respect, became stale.
Yes.
It was shown in numbers. It was confusing. It was complex. They've lost the viewers. Going north for us, from a time scale perspective, is 10 times better. It's an overnight flight to London here in Europe. And so, just from a rugby perspective, I think European rugby or the URC Premiership Championship sort of prepares us better for Test match rugby. And I thought when we played Australia, I thought maybe that is what was lacking. They didn't have enough exposure to the physical side because that's the first time I've seen a Aussie team getting bullied that way. And the same with Argentina. I just think a lot of the players didn't have enough exposure to physicality, and although they've got a great engine and work rate, they got bullied even by Argentina, and you normally don't see that. A guy like Will Skelton is world class, and he was struggling to make an impact because he needed guys to go with him. But anyway, so I mean, from our perspective, we lost a lot of players going to Europe because of the pound euro exchange rates. Russia is actually not promoting players to go abroad, but if you can't afford them, please go, but we can get you back. And when you come back, you bring extra experience and IP.
Well, let me talk about that subject very quickly here, because it's one I've long spoke about. There's two aspects to it. Number one, I've long had issues with Saru, and you don't have to comment because I'll get you in hot water. But I've long had issues with Saru about when they had the 30 caps rule. If you go abroad, if you don't have 30 caps, you can't come back and play for the Boks. I really took issue with that. And the reason I took issue with it is that I recognize, as I think most athletes do, at least the ones like yourself that plan for the future, that your playing days may be shorter than you realize. There's no guarantee you're going to play 3, 5, 10, 15, or 20 years as you did and others have done. So you don't make much money playing rugby in South Africa. That's just the truth. You don't become a wealthy person based off of your time down there, and you put your body at risk, and you also put your chance to develop some sort of business career or something, beyond that on delay while you're playing sport. So if you're offered big money to go to France in particular or Japan to go play up there, it's almost silly for you not to take that opportunity. Not to mention, a couple of my viewers talking about yesterday said, and Crystal also said this, the great thing about going to Japan and to Europe is that you also experience a different brand of rugby and a different style, and you become a much more well-rounded player. I mean, and the argument people are making is like Jacques Klein coming back down, he's looking pretty well-rounded and a great addition to the Springbok side. And I would have to say the same thing. I agree with all that. I've never liked it when fans complain that South South African players aren't in South Africa. One of my favorite players is Johan Momsen, who's played for the Griquas, and he's playing in Major League Rugby for Atlanta right now. He's a lock. Great guy, and he's come to the States, and he's making a little bit of coin over here, and good for him. I mean, you got to take the opportunities when you can get them, don't you, Schalk?
Well, I guess it's with any kind of work opportunity you get here. How do you stop people from going in another industry or on a different company if the opportunity presents itself? Although now you want to firstly let a player, it's almost a restriction of trade. You're asking the player to stay in South Africa, earn less money. There's no guarantee that you're going to play for the Springboks. You earn less money, and it's the opportunities. Not just if you've done for my example, let's use my example. I played for the Stormers, played there for 5 seasons, and I was like, okay, I've seen all the different countries that the Stormers go travel and Super Rugby. It's not just financial. I want to go experience Europe. I want to see different places. Forget the financial aspect. I want to grow as a player. I want to compete against other players. And I would say, from my perspective, I learned to scrum properly. I understood the tight phases of the game better while playing in Europe. And I think Rassie's got the same kind of viewpoints. Players, yes, it's a great tool to play in South Africa, experience the South African way, but then go abroad and become a better rugby player, more rounded, better. And yes, if there's a financial benefit in that, fantastic for you too. But I mean, if you look at Ireland, how does Ireland keep most of their players? I don't know if you know about this, but they've got a tax advantage that if you play in Ireland for 10 years, you get, for example, 30% of all the tax you paid back. That's like the pension scheme. There's nothing like that in South Africa. You pay your 45% tax, and then everything on top of that in South Africa. Unfortunately, there's other things you pay double tax and everything.
Well, you also pay for a lot of things. You pay for a lot of things you're not getting, like electricity, roads. That is South Africa.
And you're 100% right. But and then you go abroad, and I mean that sets you up. If you are lucky, it sets you up a bit better to do something with the capital you've earned abroad. And it goes a long way in South Africa.
Well, in these days, pretty much any coin you're getting outside of South Africa is going to go a long ways with the rand headed towards 30 to the dollar and the rate it's going. Sorry about that. Now, I said it works well for me. It makes my dollar go a lot further when I come over and tour South Africa, so there's an advantage for me. I mean, I haven't booked a hotel for $30 a night in a long time, but I just did that in South Africa for 2 or 3 nights. Thank goodness. Yikes.
Yeah, so hopefully we can get some influx of FX on this side. So hopefully that will attract more people, and hopefully we can get the electricity sorted.
Well, you're in Stellenbosch, so let me ask you this question. Do you ever get a chance to go over, you were ever a guest there at Teo's Rucken Mall restaurant? You ever check that out? It's closed now, unfortunately, but they were going to relocate, but apparently haven't relocated. Did you ever get a chance to see that? Incredible memorabilia there.
No.
Oh, shame. It was incredible. Well, it's hopefully they'll reopen it. I wrote to Teo and see if he's found a new location, but they'd lost their lease or something like that. Absolutely amazing, with all kinds of incredible memorabilia throughout. And it's not just Springboks; it's just rugby, all kinds of rugby going back, over, and he's got caps from way back when. It's absolutely incredible. But maybe that'll open up again. Okay, so here, do you have a favorite all-time teammate who was just a person was just great to play with? I mean, you've played with a lot of people.
Guys I've played with for a very long time is a guy, John de Villiers and Schalk Brits, went to school together, or not together, competed against each other, then was roommates, played for the Stormers, played for Saracens. I guess the longest career I've had was Schalk Brits. One of my roommates during the World Cup and at Saracens and was Vincent Koch. So I would say, and in between the times was the other one was one of your favorites was Dwayne Vermeulen. Unfortunately, snoring got too much, and I couldn't keep a shut eye with him. And I was getting addicted to sleeping tablets, so I had to kick him out or kick myself out and find a new roommate. But it does happen. I mean, imagine for people that doesn't know this, and just in the 2019 World Cup year, I only slept, and I'm not bragging, this is actually terrible because wife and kids was hard on them, is only in 8 months I only slept 15 days at home. So pretty much Vincent, or half of the year was Dwayne, and the other half was Vincent and Dwayne. You become almost like a couple. You have to look each other emotionally, physically.
Hey, that's my shampoo. Give me that shampoo back.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's a long time.
Well, it's interesting. 15 nights at home, you sound like you're in the Army. I mean, that's the kind of life I had for times. You know, you're never home. You're always deployed. You're always going some other place. It's crazy stuff. Well, it is interesting. The career you've had, all these different places, and I don't want to put you on the spot and say a favorite place, but it sounds to me like you really enjoyed your time at Saracens. Obviously, you were there for a really long time and accomplished quite a bit. And obviously, the Saracens fans were really enjoyed your presence there. But is there any place you ever went that you had an odd experience in rugby? Maybe something strange happened at the stadium. I mean, like in Currie Cup last year, people were on the pitch in Nelspruit, and the lights went out in the middle of the play. That was because load shedding. That's kind of a memorable moment. But anything odd like that ever happened in any of the games you went to? Anywhere in the world?
I can remember playing at Toulouse, and coming from South Africa, I don't know if the viewers or people listening to that would know what a long drop is. Mm-hmm. It's just before the game. I don't know, people that played the game, you get quite nervous beforehand, and I'm trying to find a toilet, and there's no toilets. I can't find a toilet. Not a urinal. I need to do the number 2, and now I'm trying to find, and they point me in the right direction there in France, and eventually I get to the toilet, but there's no bowl. You have to literally, it's a long drop.
Yeah, it's just it's like a pit latrine.
100%. And so, I mean, I can't focus on expression. I can't get in the squat position, and that was the oddest experience of my life. Now, trying to on boots, slippery, holding onto the sides like this, trying to balance myself. Sorry, there's oversharing, but that was the oddest experience.
Okay,
I've had pre-game. But yeah, so there's a lot of funny things that happen during the game, but the week leading up, there's a lot of different stories. Teammates losing tooth before game. It's just one thing I would say for any viewers in the US, you previously referred to what benefits sport brings you, but within the rugby environment, the camaraderie, the friendships goes way past the 80 minutes in the game, and even you try to kick the living crap out of each other in that 80 minutes. One thing about the rugby fraternity is you have a beer afterwards, and you laugh at what happened, all getting smashed, and say, well, I'll see you next time then.
Well, that's the thing I liked about it. When the game was introduced to me, what I noticed is one team just destroyed the other team, and they weren't really up to scratch, these two teams at the university there. And after the game was over, everybody hung over on the side, had a beer, got together. We didn't do braais, you had barbecue, but that sort of thing. And everybody just got along. There was no animosity. There was no trash talking. People just got along. It was pretty cool. But as far as, that kind of experience, when I was a young soldier in Germany, my first experience, I went to the local festival, the Jahrmarkt, which is the end of the harvest season, but it's in August. Anyway, so I went to it, and I had a couple liters of beer. It was time to go out. And so I walked out to the bathroom, and I found the facilities, and I walked in, and I'm like, where do I go to the bathroom? And the urinal was a wall with a little cut at the bottom. You know how that is in Europe. So I walked over, and I start urinating, and all of a sudden this lady walks. I'm like, what the heck? What's going on here? Because they clean the ablution units while you're in there. I was like, whoa, that was a bit of a culture shock for me. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, no.
Hello.
Yeah, exactly. It was a Turkish woman. Like, what were you doing here? And then the other was culture shock when it comes to that sort of thing. And the reason I'm sharing this is because my viewers have said TMI. Oh, that was a real cock story. No, no. But the reason I'm sharing this is so when I went to Italy the first time, I had a long drop. I had to take care of myself too, and I walked in a roadside on the Autostrada. I walked in a roadside facility. And I'm looking for the toilet commode, and there's nothing but a hole in the floor. What is this? And it's kind enough they put like little grooves so you wouldn't slip on the tile, and where you put. Anyway, so that's enough of that story. Anyway, but listen, Schalk, it's really awesome to get a chance to chat with you. I could probably try to drag you on for hours, but you've been generous with your time, and I don't want to do that. So unless you want to hang around for another hour. No, I'm just kidding. I got to go to the clinic. Got to go to the clinic myself. But listen, it's really awesome. And thank you for taking the time to come on and chat with me. I really, really enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting as well. And I'll be in Stellenbosch here in a short while. I'm flying to Cape Town on Thursday night, and I'll be passing through Stellenbosch. I'm staying at Zorgvliet one night, and then come back into Stellenbosch after that. So I don't know, maybe I'll reach out to you if coffee or something if you're available.
Please do. And Stellenbosch, although this is the wine district of South Africa, please, I would love to share a glass of vino with you or a bottle of vino.
Oh, that would be brilliant. Then I'm definitely doing that, folks. All right, there you go. That's pretty cool. Anyway, any final thoughts before we wrap up here? Can I put you on the spot with a prediction? I assume you're going to predict.
100%.
I assume you're going to predict the Springboks win the World Cup, but the floor is yours. I'll give you for a few moments. You can share whatever thoughts you want. Views on the world, people being taking care of themselves, prepping for their future, rugby, whatever you want to do. The floor is yours, sir.
So World Cup, just quickly on World Cup, the most interesting World Cup coming up, right? You've got the top 4 teams in the 2 pools. You've got South Africa, Ireland, Scotland in one pool. With Tonga, that's got a lot of players coming from New Zealand and Australia. So that's the pool of death. On the other side of the draw, you've got New Zealand and France. So that's part of the 2 pools, and we'll collide almost in the quarterfinals. So either New Zealand, South Africa, Ireland won't go through, or France won't go through. Hopefully, from our perspective, I hope we play New Zealand in the quarterfinals. France will be a tough cookie to crack in the quarterfinals. Australia, although their performance isn't great so far, and England have an easy route to the end, or not to the end, to the semi-finals. And watch out for Argentina. You never know what they might bring. So very exciting World Cup. My money, being a South African, would definitely be in South Africa, but watch out for France at home. I hope Ireland has always been, or not always, has been the couple of last World Cups rated number 1 in the world, but then struggled. Maybe this year is different. I don't know. Andy Farrell has given grant to the side and a belief that they didn't, that I thought with Joe Smith they didn't have. On life, enjoy. For those as parents, before you know it, kids are old, and enjoy every minute you've got and live life.
Well, it's hard to argue with that advice. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, no, the Ireland dodged a bullet there. Sigh of relief for them. Johnny Sexton will be playing in the World Cup. He might not have been playing there after the Champions Cup post-game performance, but we'll leave that there.
This is bias coming from me, but if it was any other player or any other country, you would have had racked up a proper ban to give him 3. Yeah. I got 6 with just throwing a zap to someone in my younger career when I was a naughty boy. And so, I mean, him getting 3 weeks is, anyway. Yeah,
and it's a build-up for the Cup, so it's not really a matter anyway. He's still recovering, so, he's probably just do his physio work in the meantime. So, but anyway, but it will. I agree with you, Schalk. It will be an amazing World Cup. I will reach out to you when I get down there to Western Cape, and we can link up. That'll be fantastic. Thank you again for your time. And I probably get, I've interviewed Schalk Burger Sr., but not junior. I need to do junior. I'll reach out to him somehow.
So talking about you haven't had a current player, I'll try to reach out to someone.
Okay.
You tell me who you're interested in. I'll try to set it up.
Okay, I'll do that. That's brilliant. Thanks. I really appreciate that, because I mean, I haven't labeled my interviews with Springboks as historic Springboks, but that's really what it's been, historic Springboks. But no, it'd be great to get a current player. And I still want to interview Mornay Sten at some point. I actually have press credentials with the Bulls. I've been to Loftus, covered games there, and I've been a part of the press conference. Actually, Jake White, he was taken aback. I was at a game earlier this year. And so they went around the room for questions, and I asked a question. He's like, because it was an American accent, he's like, and start listening very intently, and anyway, kind of caught him by surprise. But I somehow haven't been able to get a hold of Mornay Sten that way. But anyway, I'll sort that one out. But anyway, thanks a lot. Have a lovely, I was going to say weekend, but it's the beginning of the week, so enjoy your week, and we'll see you then. We'll see you in the Western Cape shortly. Cheers, Schalk Brits.
Okay. Cheers, Chris.
All right, folks. I'll let him drop off there, and then I'll go ahead and wrap up. All right, so that was Schalk Brits. I hope you found that interesting. I know I enjoyed it. Folks, be sure to give us a like and leave a comment behind on the interview if you like. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. There'll be no night owls today. I've got a clinic appointment I've got to rush off to, and then I've got to go down to the fair to help out for the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign War. We're trying to, for the public information table, let people know about what we do and how we support veterans and communities. All right, thank you all so much. I do appreciate your time and your patronage. All of this is for naught if there are no viewers and supporters. So thank you so much. I see a nice comments over here. It was that was a fun interview. I actually almost lost my spot a couple of times, but it worked out pretty well because we had a good cadence going there between the two of us. Anyway, folks, thank you very much. God bless. Have a good day. Be sure to leave a like behind, and we'll catch you here tomorrow. Unless something breaks tonight, then we'll get into that. But we'll catch you here tomorrow. Cheers, everybody. Take care. And thank you to Schalk Brits. Bye-bye, Donkey.